Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely.
So it's this English learning podcast called Daily Money Briefing.
Huh. Interesting. Okay.
It's actually pretty cool. You get the
Yeah.
financial news and kind of a language lesson all in one.
Oh, I like that. Sort of killing two birds with one stone.
Exactly. Today we're taking a snapshot of the global economy.
That's right. We're specifically focusing on three key stories coming out of Korea.
And our goal, really, is to unpack what these headlines mean for the bigger picture, pull out the interesting bits for you, sort of like putting together an economic puzzle.
Exactly. Three pieces. First, the Korean won is weakening. Second, global chip sales are bouncing back, which is good for Korea. And third, food prices there are still climbing.
So how do they fit?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? What underlying currents do they reveal?
Okay, let's dive into that first piece then. The Korean won, it's dropped to 1,420 against the US dollar. That's almost a yearly low.
Yeah.
So simply put, it takes more won to buy $1 now. What's pushing it down?
Well, there are two main things. First, you've just got a really strong U.S. dollar globally right now. It often acts as a kind of safe haven when things feel uncertain.
Yes.
But second, there are also, specific worries bubbling up about South Korea's own economy, slowing exports, maybe growth concerns.
So a bit of a double hit then. The immediate impact. More won for a dollar means imports get more expensive, right? Raw materials, maybe consumer goods.
Precisely. Anything South Korea buys from abroad costs more, and that cost, well, it can eventually trickle down to consumers.
Right, potentially adding to inflation beyond just food, which we'll get to.
It could, yes. And it might also make Korean products that rely heavily on imported parts a bit less competitive internationally.
Okay, let's switch gears to the second piece. This sounds more positive. Global semiconductor sales. They're up.
Yeah, quite significantly. Up over 15% in March compared to last year.
Wow, 15%. And that's obviously good news for the big Korean tech companies like Samsung, SK Hynix.
Oh, absolutely. This surge is really boosting their chip exports.
Is it across the board or specific types of chips?
It seems particularly strong in memory chips, the kind that are crucial for AI applications and powering big data centers. That demand is really hot right now.
So more businesses, more people globally are buying chips again.
Essentially, yes, the demand is robust.
Now, here's an interesting thought. We just talked about the weak won making imports expensive. But for these chip exporters selling in dollars, doesn't a weaker one mean their dollar earnings are worth more when they convert them back into won?
That's exactly right. It's kind of a double-edged sword, isn't it? The weak currency, while maybe reflecting some economic concerns, actually provides a bit of a financial boost to these exporters on paper.
So it cushions them a bit, even helps their bottom line in local currency terms.
It can, yeah. It highlights how these different economic factors interact in complex ways. The underlying driver is that strong global demand, but the exchange rate adds another layer.
Though I suppose relying heavily on one booming sector, like high-end chips, carries its own risks if that specific demand cools off.
That's a fair point. Diversification is always a consideration for any economy.
Okay, piece number 3. Back to maybe less cheerful news. Food prices in Korea. Still going up in April.
Yes, that trend is continuing. We're seeing price rises in everyday things, vegetables, seafood, even processed goods.
And what's behind that? Still the same issues.
Seems like a mix of things. Ongoing supply chain issues, higher costs for transportation, that's all still playing a role.
And the briefing mentioned coffee prices, too.
Yeah, apparently global shortages are pushing coffee prices up, and that's being felt in Korea as well. So it's not just locally produced food.
So basics are getting more expensive for the average person.
Pretty much, it's a direct hit to household budgets.
So let's try and connect these dots then. We have this global tech demand creating a boom for chip makers.
Yeah.
Great for that part of the economy.
Right.
But at the same time, the weak one might be making imports pricier, and food costs are definitely rising. How does that feel for the average Korean?
Well, that's the core issue, isn't it? You might have strong revenue generation in one sector, the tech sector, but if the cost of living food, potentially other imported goods, is going up, partly because of that weaker currency, it can really squeeze household finances.
Yeah, the gains in one area might not be felt equally across the board.
Exactly. And it raises questions about, how widely those economic benefits are spread versus the burdens of inflation in a weaker currency.
Okay, so here's something for you, listening, to think about. How might these three distinct stories, the currency move, the tech surge, the food inflation, actually be intertwined? What bigger global economic trends might be hiding just beneath the surface here in this Korean snapshot?
Definitely food for thought.
Indeed. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.